Chris Parker, who leads ClimeCo's plastics program, which partners with projects around the world to recover ocean-bound plastic and provide a productive next life solution for it. The program is developing plastic credits to fund ecosystem restoration, create new waste management infrastructure, and scale recycle capacity. So Chris, you're worth bumping lunch. So with that, I turn it over to you, and please take us home.
Thanks a lot, Rob, and thank you, Peter, for having me be a part of this, especially since I actually attended the Wall Street Green Summit in person, I think in 2012 or 2013, back when it was, of course, a little smaller and all in person. I'm gonna, before we get going, I'm gonna share some slides and make sure that it works, since I'm not the best IT guy. We can get that, get that taken care of right away. Is that slide working, Rob?
We see the slides, but it's kind of not presentation view.
Okay.
I'd go to the, hit the present, that one.
This one.
There we go.
See, yep. I told you, I'm not the IT guy. So thanks again for having me. I'm Chris Parker. I'm director of ClimeCo's plastic program. And what I was going to do today is give sort of an introduction to plastic credits, since it is a very new financing mechanism to the marketplace in sustainability. Give an overview on our program and how we're using credits, and then also take a look at an actual operating project right now as a good example, since a lot of people don't really know what these projects are really doing in the world. Real quickly about ClimeCo, we've been in business since 2009, working as a developer, financier, advisor, and in transactions around different environmental commodities, working heavily in the carbon space, more recently with a push into nature-based solutions, and specifically mangrove restoration is a new priority for us, and also working in renewable energy credit markets. And we also have a ESG and sustainability consulting and advisory team to work with different kinds of companies around strategy and implementation. You really can't talk about the plastics right now without sort of recognizing the global crisis that the world is in on the subject. Included there are some scary statistics that are commonly used around the world that come from Pew Charitable and also the UN. And in looking at the plastic pollution crisis, of course, everyone has their own relationship with the ocean and what pollution in the ocean means to them personally. But on a macro scale, it's, the plastic crisis is an economic issue, it's a health issue, it's a social issue, and it's a business issue. So it's forefront on financial decision makers long term. The image I like to show on the left here is one I took actually with my own iPhone. That's on a shoreline in Ivory Coast last fall, and I was there working with one of our projects. And I showed this picture because the day before, this coastline was cleared of plastic debris, and we came back a day later, and all that plastic had come back on shore from the ocean in just 24 hours. So it was ocean-bound plastic that came from a mismanaged land source, went out to the ocean, and then returned in just 24 hours. And that happens almost every day in some locations in the world. So I just love to show that picture for all the wrong reasons. So lots of people have heard about plastic credits. Not a lot of people know much about them. In their most very basic terms, they are sort of like a carbon offset, but for plastic. But once you dig in a little more and learn more about the projects, there's really a lot more to them, and it's a little more complicated than how people use carbon offsets. But they're a market financing mechanism that is meant to drive private sector capital to frontline projects around the world, both for plastic recovery and also recycling. Like carbon credits, they provide a structured, verified financial mechanism for supporters and corporations to use to support projects. And also, like a carbon credit, one plastic credit represents or equals 1 ton of physical plastic. So it can either represent 1 ton of material that was removed from the environment, or 1 ton of material that is recycled from a non-productive source. Very similar to carbon credits again, they have a very structured system and protocol that has to be followed to get certified to be able to issue credits. There's a lot of documentation, including lots of stakeholder documentation that has to take place project by project, which also requires third-party verification auditing. So projects are working off an independent methodology to be able to qualify to issue credits, which then have to be verified by a third-party auditor. So it's not just a developer like ClimeCo saying that the project's doing what they're doing. It's not just a project saying that they're doing what they're doing. They have to meet this public independent protocol and the third-party verification. Today, there are 2 working methodologies, one from Verra, which is one of the main carbon credit registries, the other being from Ocean-Bound Plastic Certification, which is from a French NGO called Zero Plastic Oceans. Both work very similar, sort of with the same goals. Both have public facing registries. So when plastic credits are issued, they're listed on their respective registry, given an individual serial number per ton, just like carbon credits, and tracked and eventually retired on that registry for anyone in the world to see. Our program is using both the Verra and the Ocean-Bound Plastic Certification to certify credit projects. I think there's a place for both. There are some differences, but I think having them both in the world is better than having one to work from. And so our program is building really a global portfolio of projects around the world. We have projects currently in Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Ivory Coast, Kenya, with pipeline projects for Indonesia, India, and in the Americas as well. So we're trying to really make a diversity in geography, but also in the different impacts, because every project is different, and also in the in-life solutions that every project's going to bring about. Our project has, our program has a zero landfill policy, meaning that all of the recovered material that's done by a project is either repurposed into a next life item, or recycled if that's possible, or co-processed in a waste to energy application. So we're not going to send any of the material to landfill. We're going to try and make a value to it, to make it as a productive activity as possible. With all projects, there's sort of three main overarching goals. One, contributing to ecosystem restoration, and that can be sometimes with either land-based or marine biodiversity, or also to help restore fisheries and also ecotourism areas. Areas where a lot of these early projects are working are areas that are very inundated by plastic pollution, where the fisheries are getting damaged, which is an economic and health issue, where ecotourism is declining because people don't want to go to a beach, or people don't want to go snorkeling on a reef that's covered in plastic. And so communities that used to have a business from ecotourism are getting directly affected by the levels of plastic that are sitting in their environment. Another main goal of the projects is to build new waste management infrastructure. So again, a lot of these locations for our projects are working in places which have either very little or almost no functioning waste management system, which is part of the problem. So if we're going to remove the material from the environment, we have to be able to process it and deal with it. And a lot of times that means building collection, sorting, processing infrastructure, sometimes from scratch. And then the other big goal for plastic credits is to fund the scaling of commercial sized recycling. And so somewhere like in the US, where plastic pollution isn't physically the same problem as it is somewhere like Southeast Asia or West Africa or Central America, we don't recycle it very well. We're very under capacity for recycling. Plastic credits have the ability to help scale new recycling, which has the intention to, one, divert material away from landfill, and also two, to displace the production of virgin plastic. So those are sort of the three overarching goals for plastic credits in our projects. And while plastic credits usually start off on a plastic pollution or environmental topic, once people start learning more about the projects, they very much turn into social conversations. All the projects that we're developing have social, economic opportunity, community, and health initiatives that are really core to projects. And so the communities that are working on these projects are usually the very ones that are being the most impacted by the plastic pollution, and also these communities on their own don't have the capability or the resources to deal with the problem. And so building in financial incentive structures for workers, healthcare initiatives, community benefits of new infrastructure are very much core to these projects. So I always try and get the people to think about the environmental and the social part of these projects and what the credits are benefiting really side by side. That it's not just about tons of plastic and cleaning the environment. It's really helping the communities that are being damaged and really building a system that's going to solve this in a longer term way. When companies are looking to support projects, it's very much my job to try and play matchmaker between what I think might be the right project and the right company, depending on what sort of ESG or CSR mandates or priorities they may have, and where, and given particular attributes or benefits from one project or another, how that might best sort of support or complement those corporate priorities for them. And so we work very much side by side with a company to create the best partnership around supporting these projects, and that could include even employee engagement opportunities to use what a company does very well and what their expertise is, and maybe helping a project if that's directly if that's applicable, or maybe just more volunteer work if that might work. And then we are very much aligning plastic credit projects with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so we are using what's called the SDG Action Manager, which is an independent scoring system created by the Global Compact and B Lab. And so it's a quantitative measure by SDG that a project can get scored on. And so that also will help align ESG and CSR priorities for supporting companies to a particular project. And then that list on the left is the overall SDG list that our sort of suite of projects are supporting one way or another. And so I thought we'd take a look at an actual project that is working today. This project is named Tundatan, and they are working in Vietnam and more recently in Cambodia. They focus on recovering non-recyclable, post-consumer, really no-value plastic from islands, rivers, shorelines, and coastal communities. And the only way that this project can work in the material that they're working in and remove it at the scale that they are is from the financing that comes from plastic credits. Without the funding through the credit mechanism, there's really no economic model to make what they're doing work. There's no incentive for people to go out and remove this plastic because it has no value. Either it's too damaged in the environment or simply the wrong mix of materials that's not able to be recycled.
Chris, can you talk to the, sorry to interrupt real quick, can you talk to the plastic credits, to the financing side of it a little bit? It came up in the questions in the chat, and I think this is an example to say, is this all from people buying credits? If you have other financial backers, how does a project like this get financed? Because like you said, the material they're recovering doesn't have real economic value, at least not in traditional methods.
Yeah. So again, using this project as a prime example, the funding is coming from credit transactions. ClimeCo actually was the first funder for the project to help them sort of get off the ground, because there is a long process that has to take place to get the certification done to get issued credits, and that can take a while. So instead of waiting for that time to come, we go ahead and provide upfront capital to projects so they can start scaling really as soon as possible. But ultimately, it's the funding that's coming from credit transactions that are going to support these projects and make them successful long term. So, and again, this project couldn't do what they're doing without the funding from plastic credits. And so this Tundatan was actually the first project in the world that came from one of the two protocols. They issued credits last summer, and they were, I guess, the world's first plastic credit transaction coming from one of those registries that has independent auditing and verification. And more recently, they have expanded from Vietnam into Cambodia in a campaign called Plastic Free Coastline, launched with the Ministry of Environment and the UNDP, where they're building new infrastructure where nothing exists, with a plan to remove 3,000 tons of material in the next 12 months, and then build new reprocessing to deal with it. And also, I'm coming back to the social side of these projects. With Tundatan, that's very much core to what they're doing as well. And so they have a program to hire majority female workers and provide a financial structure well above what the country's sort of daily wage income would be given their skill level and education. So it's a real economic opportunity for them as individuals. And there's also fair labor practices and quality equipment to use, and an education program, and also healthcare benefits. And so they receive health and medical benefits kind of beyond what they would probably be able to access on their own. And so I would open any questions, Rob.
There's a few that have popped through in the chat, and I think maybe one thing, just real quick before we wrap up on recycled plastics, or what you mentioned about building infrastructure and a lot of different potential use cases. Do you look at different use cases, whether it's road resurfacing, buildings, et cetera, depending on location or environment, or you've got a few different options? What's the standard approach there?
The standard approach is doing what's feasible given the location and sort of the mature sort of the landscape of where they're working. And it's different in every location. You brought up building. We have a project in Ivory Coast, the picture I showed at the very beginning, that, like Tundatan project, is removing ocean-bound non-recyclable plastic and making it into modular construction bricks, which are about this big, that literally snap together without power tools. And then the bricks are being used in a UNICEF school building program. So UNICEF acquires the bricks that are made from 100% plastic waste, and building new classrooms in a part of the world that's vastly under capacity for schools. And so that works at that location.
Mhm.
You know, again, you know, we're trying to make a mix of repurposing that can directly benefit a community, like that brick example, and also work to make new infrastructure to capture recyclable material before it becomes damaged, so we can get it recycled and back into a productive plastic, you know, production loop. But that often means new infrastructures, again, collect the material before it becomes pollution, and so we can kind of retain value early on.
All right, Chris, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you for coming on.